Today's webinar is entitled The ABCs of Healthy Meal Prep. Our presenter today, Yenory Garcia-Pouncil, a meal prep coach and founder of iAmHealthyFit, a wellness community focused on teaching women simple ways to eat healthier without feeling overwhelmed and deprived. You can learn more about iAmHealthyFit at iamhealthyfit.com. A link will be sent to you in the follow-up email to today's webinar. Yenory is an Afro-Latina from Honduras. Yenory uses her own personal struggles with health and wellness to empower others to take control of their healthy using foods and healing sources. Yenory's work has been featured on Good Morning Washington, Women's Health Magazine, and the Huffington Post. Yenory is both an athletic and fitness association of American Certified Groups of Exercise Instructions and Certified Exoterobics Instructor. Excuse me. Yenory also holds a master's in public administration. We are thrilled to have you with us, Yenory, and now over to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to do this webinar and talk to you about meal prepping and how it can help transform your life for the better. So why don't we get started? Can you advance the slides for me? Oh, there we go. All right, so it's a little bit about me. I know Ari had an opportunity to talk about who I am and what I do. Here, you can learn a little bit about how I got into this journey. I was battling depression, and I gained 25 pounds. And I used healthy eating and focusing on food preparation to lose the weight and find myself in a better position. I felt control for the very first time in my life and learned to love the woman that I saw in the mirror. And now I use my story to help other women or men as well to transform their lives and become healthier and happier people. Erin talked a little bit about iAmHealthyFit. Since we got launched in 2014, we had the opportunity to be featured in a number of platforms and more, including Good Morning Washington, Women's Health Mag, Huffington Post, as well as the Black Bride magazine. And you can learn more about iAmHealthyFit on the website, as Erin mentioned, iamhealthyfit.com. Okay, so before we get into the weeds of meal prepping, I would like to ask you to take a moment to think about this question. How will it ever change your life? You should see right now that there is a poll that has popped up, and I would like you to take a second to select the answer that best describes how you're feeling in this moment. I'm going to give you about a second to kind of get some answers going and select one of the multiple choice options in front of you. Awesome. So as you're thinking about that question, I really want you to take some time to answer that. A lot of us don't know what meal prepping is. A lot of us don't know how meal prepping can help us. And this will give me an idea to kind of understand where you are with meal prepping and what does that look like for you right now. Ooh, okay, thank you. So this is the before and after photos of my husband and I. I was battling depression. I was overeating. I'm a stress eater, something that I've struggled with my whole life. And my husband was actually struggling with sleep apnea, which often woke me up at night when I was sleeping. I remember one night I frantically woke him up because I was afraid that he was choking on his sleep. He eventually went to the doctor, and they let him know that he was medically obese and that he had to lose weight if he wanted to deal with some of those issues and stop struggling with his sleep patterns. And during this time, we didn't realize that we had health issues, but that kind of became a wake-up call for us to kind of change our eating habits and think about ways to be consistent around eating better. So this is kind of what our patterns look like when we started eating healthy. We were eating out a lot. We lived in New York City where there's a lot of great restaurants, a lot of great food, and we were enjoying those foods. We were also drinking a lot, because when you go out to eat, you also have to usually pair it with a drink. we were eating things. Our go-to fast food restaurant was Little Caesars, which in our minds was a lot healthier than McDonald's, so it makes sense for us. I personally love their lemon chicken wings, which is one of my favorite things to eat all the time, and of course chocolate. I'm a huge Snickers fan. I fell in love with their creamy filling, caramel filling when I was in high school, and ever since then it's something that I've always eaten. So I never thought about even not eating Snicker bars, to be honest. Um, and as you can see, we didn't exactly focus on fruits and vegetables. We really focused on eating foods that were not healthy for us. So it wasn't something that we were mindful about. Now, then we began then it happened, right? We realized that we had to do something about what was going on. We couldn't continue to live our lives dealing with depression, and my husband dealing with sleep apnea and other issues that arose from the obesity issues that we were facing in our relationship or as individuals. Both my husband and I needed to eat better, and we realized that one of our main issues was snacking. It was the food that we kept around the house, the foods that we ate when we were out with friends, that constantly pushed us to eating unhealthy and creating these patterns of unhealthy eating. So we decided to focus on prepping our snacks. Before anything else, that was the main thing that we really focused on. And over time, this process took us from this image that you see on your left to where you see on your right. And it has helped us maintain our lifestyle for the past 3 to 4 years. So what is meal prep? Before I give you the answer, I would like to take a second to you to answer this question. A lot of us don't know what meal prep is or think we have an idea what meal prep is, and I want to get an idea for what do you think meal prep is before we get started. I'm going to give you a second to kind of answer those questions. Pick a question that fits you. Awesome. All right, so let's get into the answer to this question. Meal prep essentially is any action that you take to help you prepare your food in advance. And this means the meal prep can be healthy or unhealthy. A lot of people assume that meal prepping is something that's healthy all the time. The reality is that you have been meal prepping. Up to this point, you have done some type of meal prep. It has not been perhaps a healthy meal prep, but you have been doing it. And I see a lot of people seem to think that the fridge full of containers with everything individually is what meal prep is. And that's a huge misconception, and it keeps a lot of people from meal prepping because frozen dinners, depending on where you're getting your dinners from, could be a form of meal prepping. Cleaning your fruits and vegetables can also be a form of meal prepping. So having the fridge and the fridge full of individual containers seems to be a popular answer is because that's how social media makes it look like. That's how a lot of experts make it look like. But in reality, even things like cleaning your fruits and vegetables are forms of meal prepping. And like I mentioned before, meal prep can be healthy or unhealthy. Most of us engage in unhealthy meal prepping by having foods around us that are not healthy foods. That includes like the candy drawer that you might have, the snacks in your purse that you're picking up when you're hungry at the office. Those things are not healthy, but that's you prepping to eat those things. So that's a form of meal prepping that is just not beneficial to you, but you are actually doing it. The good thing about shifting from that unhealthy meal prep to a healthy meal prep is that you can then be in control. You tell your cravings what you're going to eat, and you don't let your cravings tell you what it is that they want you to eat. And that's usually where a lot of us fall short and really struggle and find ourselves gaining weight and dealing with some of these diseases that I mentioned earlier, including things like depression and sleep apnea, like my husband and I. And there are different techniques that you can use to meal prep, and we'll talk a little bit more about those later. So I don't want you to think that if your fridge it doesn't look beautiful with all the containers, then you're not meal prepping. There are other ways that you can meal prep without necessarily having to have your fridge look like that. So I'm going to talk about two of the biggest myths around meal prepping. The first one is the meal prep takes forever, and a lot of that has to do with the nature of this photo that's in front of us right now. As you can see, I have a fridge here, and there are all these containers in my fridge. They are This is actually one of my personal meal preps, and this did take a long time. However, your meal prep doesn't have to look like that. And if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend against you trying this for the first time, because once you do this, meal prep doesn't have a one-size-fits-all definition. You get to decide how long your meal prep is based on how much time you have and what the schedule looks like. One of the techniques that you can use to get started is cleaning your fruits and vegetables. I know I mentioned that earlier, and it's one of the best places where I encourage my clients to begin with, because it's really simple to do. You don't have to take a lot of time to do it, and you eventually will clean your fruits and vegetables. And if you just buy them and do it when you get home or whenever you're ready, you'll find yourself saving that time later when you're ready to eat them or when you're ready to prep them. It requires zero cooking, so if you don't like to cook, you can still do a form of meal prep without ever having to cook anything. However, when you're ready to cook these foods, you will be able to move your meal prepping along into another technique that might meet where you are in that space. Remember that you are in control. You decide how long this process can take. No one decides that but you. And that's why it's important that you understand that meal prepping, you can define what meal prepping means to you, and that's how you can choose to do it. That's how you can do it efficiently and consistently. Now, the second myth that I hear often around meal prepping is that you don't have time. Now, I had a client once that told me that she only had 20 minutes. She said, Yenory, I can only spare 20 minutes for the meal prep thing. That's all I have. I cannot do any more than that. And then a few weeks later, I remember talking to her, and she told me that she loved binging on her favorite shows. I think she was watching Game of Thrones at that time or something, and she was like, I binge on it. I loved watching it. It's like one of my favorite things to do. So I recommended to her that she tried prepping her snacks while she was watching Game of Thrones. I told her just while the show starts, put some of your things aside, and then you can start prepping some of your things. You can start washing the vegetables. You can start putting your nuts and your seeds into your containers, and before you realize it, you will be done with your meal prep. She found out that she could finish her snack meal prep for 7 days within 25 minutes. Way before the episodes were over, she was done prepping her snacks for the week, and it didn't take her any additional time to do that. So the truth is that you have time to meal prep. You'll just have to find a way to incorporate meal prepping into the things that you already do daily, into your daily routine. And once you do that, and once you see the benefits of meal prepping, it's going to become easier for you to do it in the future. You'll be more excited to make more time for it, and you won't struggle as much to make it a priority. So you have time to meal prep. It's just a matter of finding ways to making that work for you. So at this point, I do want to take a pause. I know I shared just a lot of information, and see if anyone has any questions right now about what meal prepping is and how do you, in the myths that I just discussed until this moment. Alrighty. So if no one has any questions, then I'm just going to keep going. And please send your questions to Erin, and she'll be able to send them to me. Okay. So why do you need to meal prep? That's something that seems to come up often, right? Why is this something that you should do? Well, I can go on for hours about the benefits of meal prepping and how it has made my husband and I's lives for the better. So these are some of the things that I think have been the most transformational for us. Number one, decreasing the time that I cook by 50%. Now, as I showed you earlier, I cook for the entire week. I make my lunches, my husband's lunches, my dinners, his dinners, and I even prep some of the snacks. So I do a lot of cooking. And all of that cooking was taking me between 10 to 12 hours. Once I really got deeper into my meal prepping and figure out what worked and didn't work for me, I was able to decrease that down to 6 hours. And now I'm down to 4 hours. So it's even more than 50%. So that's less time that I spend in the cooking and more time that I can do other things that I enjoy the most. During the week, I don't really touch the kitchen. So when I come from work and I'm tired, I don't have to worry about cooking at all. I just go into my day and eat the food that I have at home and get to maximize my evening instead of having to worry about cooking. The other thing that has been really helpful for us is shorter trips to the grocery store. Growing up, my mother spent hours at the grocery store. I never knew what we needed to be at the grocery store for so many hours, but it seemed like it went on forever. And now, when I grew up, I didn't want to spend so much time at the grocery store. And I found that the more time I spend in the grocery store, the more likely I am to buy foods that I don't need to purchase. So by using meal prep, I am able to go to the store and make my trips about 30 minutes or less because I know exactly what I'm going to buy. I know exactly where I'm not going to buy, so I avoid certain aisles, and I just get in and get out. Sometimes I spend more time online waiting to pay for my food than I'm actually spending looking and buying the food. And as a result of that, I have more time to spend with my husband, more time to spend with my family members, more time to spend creating content for iAmHealthyFit. I'm able to free hours in the week to do other things I enjoy the most besides being in the grocery store or cooking for a really long period of time. So you also will have an opportunity to do that as you incorporate meal prep into your day-to-day in your lives. Okay, so now let's get into some of the don'ts of meal prepping. We've learned about what it is, we learned about how it can help change our lives, and this is an opportunity for me to get deeper into what not to do when you're meal prepping, what's going to stand in the way of being consistent, of being successful, and of wanting to do this. So there are three things that I think you should stay away from when you get started with your healthy meal prep. Your number one should be to make it a priority and be intentional. Do not leave this to chance. If you leave meal prepping to chance, I guarantee you it will not work for you. You're not going to do it. You're not going to be consistent with it. You're not going to think it's working because you won't be consistent, so technically you will feel like it's not working, and you're not going to want to do it. And if you want if you want to make this work for you, you have to be intentional about it, and you have to make it a priority. Number two is stay away from using long recipes. These recipes are going to overwhelm you. If you've ever cooked something from the internet and you look at the recipe list and there are like 20 ingredients, there's like 30 steps to it, it takes like 4 hours to cook, you're immediately going to say, I'm not interested, this is too much, I don't want to do this, I'm never going to do this again, meal prepping, it's not my thing, I'm done with it. Instead, you want to stay away from that, and I'm going to get into which one to do instead, but you want to get away from that. You want to just focus on using things that are not going to make you feel overwhelmed. You want to focus on recipes that are going to that have a reasonable length so that you don't feel like, oh, well, I don't want to do this, I'm going to be overwhelmed with it. Number three, be mindful of what you keep around the house. Your meal prep doesn't have to be super clean, super healthy. You can compromise with yourself, but you do want to be mindful around what things you keep at home. When we got started, there were a lot of stuff we stopped buying for our household because we really felt that if we kept those foods around the house, even if we weren't craving for it, just knowing that it was home was enough for us to grab those foods and eat them. So we decided to move away from unhealthy meal prepping to healthy meal prepping. So as you move to healthy meal prepping, you want to be mindful around what you keep around your house. Like Benjamin Franklin once said, if you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail. We want to get in the business of succeeding in preparing so that we don't fail and not the other way around. Are there any questions about the don'ts of meal prep?
So we do have a question for you, Yenory. The first question comes from Steven, and Steven says that he's tried meal prep for an entire week on Sunday, but found that anything he uses that's an uncooked leafy vegetable would start to go bad or soggy before Friday came around. So he wants to know, how do you keep your prepared foods fresh all the way through the end of the week?
Thank you, Steven. So there are two things happening here. If you're using a leafy green for something like a salad, for example, then one tip that I use to keep my greens crunchy and fresh is to spritz them with a little bit of water and put them in a plastic bag in the fridge. That keeps the moisture in, and when the time you're ready to eat your leafy greens, then they will not be soggy and they used to have the texture that you're looking for. If you're going to use your leafy greens for smoothies, then I recommend just freezing them. Just freeze the leafy greens. And then when you're ready to have your smoothie, then just dropping them into your blender so that you can mix them up. And that way they will not be soggy and they will not go bad. So those are my two recommendations. If you put them in the bag, if you spritz them with a little bit of water and you put them in the bag, then you'll find that the light's going to expand. Something else that people do, and I used to do this in the beginning, is wrap my leafy greens in paper, like in brown paper. That also helps preserve some of them. Some people use newspaper too. I haven't used newspaper, but I know it's a strategy that some people use that works for them. So that's something that you can also try to maintain the crispiness and the crunchiness of your your leafy greens. Are there any more questions?
I think we're ready to see some more of the presentation now.
Thank you, Erin. So let's get into the do's of meal prepping, right? So what should you really be doing? So the first thing you need to do is go to the grocery store or get fresh produce to you some way, somehow, right? Some people, I know they use services like I think there's a number of supermarkets that delivers food to your door. I don't use that service. I like to go to the store and pick out my own food at the grocery store. But if you want to do that, just having fresh food delivered to you or having to prepare it is something that I would highly recommend. Now, if you don't like to cook, there are a number of meal prep services out there that will do this for you depending on where you live, so you might want to explore that option. But if you want to go the route of cooking your own food, then I highly recommend going to the grocery store. In this time, you're going to get connected with your food. You're going to understand what your food looks like in its raw form, and you're going to get really familiar with how food is supposed to taste. A lot of us don't really know what food is supposed to taste because we eat so much processed food. And we'll get into what processed foods are and why that's a challenge later on in the presentation. Number 2, follow the 80-20 rule. And this rule applies to anything that you eat whenever, whether it's at the grocery, whether you're buying something at the grocery store, whether you're buying something at a restaurant for eating, whether you're cooking something, whether you're prepping your snacks, whatever. Always follow the 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule states that you should eat about 80% of the food. 80% of the food that you eat should be non-processed, should be foods that are like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, things that have not really been messed with that much, and the overwhelm is mostly healthy foods. And then with the 20%, it's an opportunity for you to compromise with yourself. I hear this term often around cheat meals and cheat weeks and cheat days. You cannot cheat on food. You're going to eat the food is going to do what it's going to do. If it's healthy, it's going to nourish you. If it's unhealthy, it will not nourish you. Some ways it might make you sick. So you cannot stop talking about food using terms like cheat meal and cheat this. Instead, allow yourself to make those compromises. Because you've been eating 80% of your foods that are healthy, you're going to give yourself some room and use that additional 20% to eat some of the things that are not as healthy, but that you still enjoy. So you want to make sure that you're following the 80% rule when you're buying things in the supermarket. So here is an example of my actual grocery shopping. And you see lots of raw stuff, lots of fruits, and have some kale there, and there's other things that are that are not being shown. And then I have this like cashew sweet snacks that my husband and I seem to really like these days. So this is a way that you can have a healthy meal prep shopping experience, but still have some leniency with yourself and make some compromises with yourself, because when you don't compromise with yourself, you're going to find yourself binging on a lot of these unhealthy foods, and next thing you know, you're going to be setting yourself back. So we want to continue taking a step forward. We don't want to take too many steps back, right? So make sure you follow the 80-20 rule. Number 3, read your nutritional facts labels. This is perhaps one of the most important tips I can give you, and if you take nothing from this presentation, this should be the one thing that you really take with you. There are a lot of ingredients in the foods that we eat here in the United States that have been banned in other countries across the world. So reading the nutrition labels can really teach you a lot about what you're putting in your body. It can teach you a lot about why you're not seeing the results that you want to see, why you're suffering from certain illnesses, why your gaining weight, why the weight continues to come back and you after you drop it or you get rid of it. So really focus on looking at your nutrition labels. There's a lot of information in a nutrition label, but the place where you should really start is the ingredients. So look at the ingredients. If there's an ingredient there that you don't know, Google that ingredient and get familiar with what are you putting in your body. You would not, for those of you that have children, you wouldn't give something to your child unless you knew what it was when they're babies. So somehow as we get older, that rule starts bending more and more until we just kind of get to the stage where we don't care as much what's in our food, and that's how we find ourselves battling with a lot of these health issues and weight issues that lead to other issues like emotional issues and things like that. So reading your nutrition label, that's very important. That's an easy way to know whether you should buy something or not at the grocery store. If you have a list of 30 ingredients and you only know one or two, then you probably want to do a little more research before you buy that. So really being aware about what you're buying and what you're eating is one of the number one things to do if you're going to focus on food preparation and using that as a tool to become a healthier person. I have some additional tips for you. Number one, set a time and a day to prep and stick to it. So once you figure out what technique you want to use and how much time you want to spend meal prepping, just set a time and a day and stick to it. My meal prep days are on Sundays. I wake up around 9 a.m. Well, I wake up earlier than that. By 9 a.m., I start cooking. These days, I'm done by noon at the latest. Here you have some examples of some of the meal preps that I do. My husband went through a stage where he just wanted to eat broccoli, potatoes, and chicken. So I cooked that a lot for him. We eat a lot of fish at our home, a lot of smoothies. So just setting that time to on your schedule and planning it out so that you can know when are you going to cook, what are you going to cook, and you can just get right into it. And you can also plan around that. So when people say they want to come over, you can say, well, I'm meal prepping during this time, so why don't you come a little later, or why don't you come on this other day instead? You can decide how you can make this a priority for you and make sure you plan around it so that you can be intentional, because like we mentioned earlier, if you're not intentional, it's not going to work. Start with your snacks. I really recommend starting with snacks. If you want to focus on meal prepping things that you can eat, snacking is something that we do mindlessly. We snack all the time. We snack when we're watching TV. We snack at the office. We snack at the game. We snack all the time. So focusing on your snacks is a really easy place to start because you can get as creative as you want. You don't have to cook anything. You don't have to be in the kitchen. It doesn't take that long. And you can mix and match your snacks throughout the week. One of the things that people struggle with is saying, well, Yenory, I don't want to eat the same thing every single day. And you don't have to do that, especially if you get started with your snacks. That's a place where you can add a lot of diversity to what you're eating. So starting with your next snacks is a really good option. Eat what's in season. I highly recommend this because when the food is in season, it tastes better, it's fresh. It's usually on sale because there's so much of it. There's a lot of it in bulk. So you can buy those foods and freeze them for later, or you can maximize some of those foods during season and change it around the year goes by. And then compromise with yourself. That's really important because if not, you're going to go into binge eating, and that's something you want to stay away from. You want to be mindful of that. So definitely be open to compromising with yourself and not feeling like your meal prep has to be perfect. Your food has to be perfect all the time. Instead, you want to be open to making some of those compromises so that you don't feel like you're being deprived, because when we are deprived, we go back to old behaviors and old foods that we want to stay away from. Okay, are there any questions before we move into the healthy meal plan?
We do have a question, and I think it's a good introduction into this section. How are you finding recipes for meal prepping that aren't repetitive, and what sort of things do you feel are best to prepare that will last through the end of the week?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I'm actually going to give you a list of websites where you can get recipes from that I use all the time. So I'll be sharing with you later in the presentation. As far as foods that I think last longer during the week, I find that when you're prepping your food, there are different elements to what you're eating. And before I get in deeper into that, before you begin any meal plan, before you even start thinking about some of those questions, you have to make sure you consult your physician. We are all different. We have unique needs based on our health, our history of illnesses, and other factors. So you want to make sure that you're creating a plan and you're eating foods that are tailored to what you need and where you are, because we're not all the same. And some of the things that might be my needs are not mirror of what your needs are. So you want to be sensitive to that, right? So once you talk to your physician and you can kind of get some of things going, then you can take some of these recommendations and try them out. So some of the foods that I find that work really well are when you're cooking your grains. So cooking your grains in advance is something that will last you throughout the week. You can do things. You can cook some grains they'll last for up to like 5 days. If you freeze some of them early in the week, they last even longer, and then warm them up later. So grains, using things like quinoa, using things like brown rice, using things that I think kamut is one of them too that it holds really well. Most protein that comes from animals will last you for a while, so I want to say between 4 to 5 days. But once again, if you freeze some of these things, you can expand the life of the food as well. Things like chilies, if you make a chili of some sort with like quinoa and black beans and corn and whatever you love adding in your chili, if you make a vegan version of it with less sodium, then you can also save that for a while, especially during right now, which we're entering into winter season. It's cold outside. Those are foods that you can they travel well, and they will also last for a long time during the week. So those are some of the examples of things that you can cook, and I can get more into that later in the presentation if I didn't get thorough on some of those options. All right, so let's talk about this creating your healthy meal plan. So according to the CDC, 1 in 3 adults in the United States are obese, and 1 in 6 children are obese. And people with obesity are at higher risk of diseases like stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes type 2 or type 2 diabetes, body pain, sleep apnea like my husband was dealing with, breathing problems, and mental illnesses like I was dealing with. So obesity is a huge issue for us here in the United States. So why is obesity such a problem for us? In 2016, Time magazine shared a study that was published in a journal called the BMJ Open. And this study was led by a Brazilian scientist at the University of Sao Paulo. And this study found that nearly 60% of the calories that Americans eat every day come from ultra-processed foods. Now, ultra-processed foods are things like colors and sweeteners and trans fats, things that you wouldn't cook with at your house. So a lot of these calories come from things that we're eating outside our house. And like I mentioned earlier, as I was dealing with my own personal challenges, we were eating out a lot. And a lot of the foods that we ate were unhealthy and came from places that we were we were not cooking that food. And that's like cooking could be a very useful component of this process. The other thing the study found was that only 1% of the calories that we eat on every day come from vegetables. And I remember telling my husband this stat, and he said, you know what, that makes sense because when I was growing up, my mom would only cook vegetables on Sunday. That would be the only day she had the time to cook for us. So we would eat vegetables on Sunday. So as you can see, we're not overwhelmingly as a country getting our intake from fruits and vegetables. We're getting most of the food that we eat from these ultra-processed foods that lead to things like obesity and are linked with some of these health issues that we're facing on our day-to-day. So what should you be eating instead? So instead, you want to focus on eating things that are not processed or lightly processed, things like the whole foods, like your fruits, your vegetables, your seeds, your nuts. You want to focus on eating things that don't have a lot of additives in them. You want to focus on trying to eat things that have not really been touched with as much. As I mentioned before, using foods that are in season are a good way to also do that. And this is only following the 80-20 rule. You can do most of your eating in these types of foods and allow yourself to eat in other types of in the other buckets as well. Things like cherry tomatoes are actually one of the foods that I found that last really well during the week. And I'm one of those people that likes to snack on tomatoes. But if I was making a salad, I would keep my cherry tomatoes, and then when I'm ready to eat my salad is when I would actually cut them for the salad. I wouldn't do that in advance. Another tip is when you're cooking your food, keep your fruit and vegetables separate, because for some reason, when you combine them, they tend to go bad faster. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your food separate and your fruits separate and your vegetables in separate containers, and you only mix them together when you're ready to eat them. And that's, for example, when you're making salads, you see some people that layer them and keep them separate because of that. Because if you mix them too early in the week, they are likely to go bad. So I'm going to share with you some options of things that you can eat. When you're thinking about these foods, obviously you want to consult with your physician to make sure that they are tailored to your needs and that they feed whatever it is that you're dealing with. You might be having some health challenges, so you want to make sure that the food that you're eating speaks to where you are and it speaks to what you need for your health. So let's get into breakfast. Breakfast is something that a lot of people don't eat breakfast, but breakfast is a really good way to start your day. I know we've been hearing this for a really long time, but it is because it helps you set a foundation for your day. You want to eat foods that are going to be energizing, going to be filling, and are going to be able to kind of counteract some of those cravings that you may have during the day. So starting your day with breakfast is really important. So here are some options that I recommend for breakfast or that work really well for breakfast. One is having a green smoothie or just having a smoothie. It's an easy way to get your serving of fruits and vegetables in the morning without having to do a lot of work or having to cook anything. Green smoothies are good. It's a good way of you adding your vegetables in, but you can also use things like protein powders that are plant-based. So you don't have to use protein powders that are not plant-based. You can use plant-based protein powders that can also help get some of your intake of fruits and vegetables. My husband did that for a few years, actually, and now we only use the plant-based protein powder at our house. Number two, I recommend using things like oatmeal. A lot of us, you might like warm foods. So if you're not someone that likes smoothies, you might like something that's warm. Oats are another way of getting some carbs, healthy carbs in, as well as mixing them with your fruits. A lot of people do overnight oats, but you can also just cook your oatmeal and eat it like cereal instead of having actual processed cereal. And you can add fruits on that. You can top it with some nuts as well. You can top it with some nuts as well. So you are incorporating different foods into what you're eating. And then you can use a lot of whole grain flour. I made these pancakes with whole grain flour, and they were amazing and delicious. And to top them, I just took some strawberries with water and cooked them a little bit to create my own kind of topping for it. Things you can do at home. It took me literally 2 minutes to do that, and I don't have to use anything that's store-bought. So you can have some options around the things that you want to do based on how much time you have, based around what you have in the house, and based on what you like to eat or what your family likes to eat. So these are some options for breakfast that I think work really well that you can try. And again, you can get as creative as you want with these. You don't have to do a green smoothie. You might want to do strawberries and raspberries and blueberries. But depending on whatever it is that you're in the mood for, whatever is in season, you can pick flavors that you enjoy so that you can make food that you like. You don't have to top your oats with bananas like I did. You might want to use something else like mangoes or peaches or something of that nature. So it's up to you how to take the flavors that you like and infuse them into what you're cooking. So let's talk a little about lunch and dinners. This is a place where you can also get really creative. This places require a little more cooking. Again, if you don't like to cook, there are other things that you can do. This presentation is for people that like to cook, and there are services out there that will cook the food for you. You just have to, again, be vigilant around what seasonings they're using, what ingredients they're putting in your food to make sure that you know the food is healthy, but there are ways to go around that and still eat healthier without having to cook if you don't like to cook. But if you do, here are some options that you can cook at home. Bowls are great for meal prepping. That's the first photo that you see here. And you can use things like ground turkey, black beans, I think that has onions and peppers and brown rice. And then this is really easy to travel. You can layer this in your containers when you're going to work, and you can take it with you. And it's easy to pop it in the microwave or the oven to warm it up and eat it. The awesome thing I like about bowls is that once, let's say you're 3 days or 4 days in, and you're like, I'm officially tired of eating this bowl. I want to eat something else. Because that happens sometimes, right? We cook the food and we want to eat it. We think we're going to eat it, but then when it gets down to it, we find ourselves not eating it because we're tired of it. So if that's a situation where you are, then turning your bowl into a chili is something that I highly recommend. I do this all the time with my bowls, and it works great for me. And then you can even turn them into burgers. Like there are all these different things that you can do with your food without wasting the food, so that you're being mindful around what you're eating, and you can reinvent your food throughout the week. Of course, salads. A lot of us have this idea that if you want to eat healthy, we have to eat a salad. If it's not a salad, it's not healthy. But that's not the case. If you go to a place that sells salads, by the time you put all these different foods in the salad might not be as healthy as it was when you got started, right? So you want to be always mindful around what ingredients you put in your food, how much of those ingredients are in your food, and how the food is being prepared to make sure that it's a healthy meal. So salads are a great way of doing that. Having a combination of fruits and vegetables is really good. As you can see the salad that I have here, there are some strawberries, some cucumbers. I even added some pumpkin seeds on top of it and hemp seeds to add additional protein. So these are ways that that you can use these foods to like be healthier and to incorporate into what you're eating. One of my favorites are the bell peppers. This one is made with shrimp and broccoli and quinoa. And there's another way that you can take different things that you might have cooked earlier in the week and turn them into something else. I'm always reinventing the food that I cook so that I can make sure that that I'm eating foods differently during the week and I don't get tired of what I'm eating. So highly recommend stuffed bell peppers, and you can stuff them in whatever you want as long as they're healthy. They're healthier options. And just by you cooking alone, you're going to be eating healthier. If you do not, just by you preparing the food that you eat, even if it's the unhealthy food that you were eating before, the act of you cooking it is going to be healthier because you are now going to be using a lot of those ingredients that other restaurants use that add to the issues that we talked about earlier in this presentation. And last, I want to get into snacks because we talk so much about snacks and how important it is to be mindful of your snacks. So there's a few things that you want to keep in mind when you're snacking. Make sure they're easy to travel. The thing about snacks happens literally everywhere. You want to have them readily available for you. Using things like nuts and seeds. I talked about compromising earlier. So here, for example, you see I have this chips with some avocado. There's a way of me still having something that is not always healthy, but with healthier options. One serving of chips is not going to, kill you, or it's not going to take you over the edge. So everything in moderation. That's an example of what my 20% looks like in my snacking. Using things like chickpeas. I love chickpeas. They're so multidimensional. You can put them in your salad. You can roast them and toast them and eat them as is. You can make hummus with them. They're a really good source, and they're also a really good source of nutrients for you. So I highly recommend chickpeas if you like chickpeas and you can handle chickpeas. And then thinking about making different types of salads. So here, this is one of my favorite salads. This is strawberry, cucumber, and avocado salad, where I have my healthy fat, where I have my fruits, my vegetables. You sprinkle a little bit of black pepper and lemon juice, and maybe a dash of sea salt, and then something that I can eat without feeling like I'm not eating enough, or without feeling like it's not a snack that's filling. And it's a very filling snack. So if you're concerned with having filling snacks, then this is a way of making your snacks more filling for you. And here is kind of one of the answers to the question that we got earlier around where do you get your recipes from. This is a list of websites that I found have a really good combination of recipes. These include recipes even for that are children friendly. These are recipes that are easy to follow, recipes that do not take too long to make, that do not require extra ingredients, that do not require you to buy a million ingredients that you're never going to use again. So here's a list of websites that I recommend. iAmHealthyFit is one of them. For Food Heaven Made Easy is actually run by 2 dietitians, I believe. So they have a lot of information there for folks that need more of that attention. It sterilizes have a lot of food that uses sterilizing recipes. So if you have a sterilizer, that's a place that I will recommend. Janelle B. Stewart has children, so she talks a lot about how to meal prep with her children and what kind of recipes that they cook together. So I highly recommend those websites as places for you to get started. And then as you try this recipe, don't be afraid to begin developing your own recipes, right? You might find a recipe that you really like, but then you realize that you want to trade one ingredient for another ingredient, and that you want to use certain more of one ingredient and less, and just start kind of jotting these things down so that you can start creating the recipes that work for you. Some of us might not find what we're looking for in all of the sites, so it's good to try things out, see what your family likes, see what your children like, see what you like, and the more you learn about that, you can start creating recipes for yourself. And that's something that I began doing. That's a lot of how my recipes came up. It's just me finding well, what do I like? What are the combination of fruits and vegetables and grains that I like? What are the kind of foods that I enjoy the most? And by doing that, I was able to not only do iAmHealthyFit, but I create even more recipes that I share with friends, family, and my readers. So that's pretty much it, what I recommend. If you have any questions, I am happy to take those now. I know we went over a lot of information, so I want to make sure I get an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, we have one more question for you right now, and that is, with the holiday season approaching, what sort of tips do you have to integrate meal planning to avoid unhealthy choices?
Ooh, holiday season, our favorite time of the year. So there are two things you can do. One of the things that my husband and I do a lot when we are heading out with friends and family for the holidays, if they're potluck style, even if they're not, we always volunteer to bring something. We volunteer to bring food of some sort, and that's the food that we usually eat. It's the food that we bring, and it's food that anybody can eat, to be honest. But a lot of times it's really made so that we can have something to eat that's cook healthier, that's based on what we need, and it's based on how we live our lifestyle. So that's one option. The other option is to make some of those meals your compromise meals. If you can't fight them, join them, right? Just be mindful of the portions that you're eating. And when you're leaving those dinners or those family functions, make sure that outside of those events, you're continuing to meal prep on your own. Because that's usually what happens. You get to your mom's house or you get to your aunt's house and all the food is there and they want you to eat it, and you don't want to deal with but you don't eat this anymore, you don't eat that anymore, and that can get really emotionally draining. So sometimes it's not even worth to take on that battle. So if you don't want to bring something, then just be okay with eating some of the things that they might have around the house, and just be mindful of your portion. Now, if you've been consistently eating healthy for a while, your body might not like that, so be aware of that as well. I highly recommend bring something, like even if it's a snack just for you, so that you know that you can eat some of the unhealthy food that might be there, but you're going to focus mainly on eating the things that are healthy for you, and having a healthy backup in your bag is something that you can do. So I highly recommend that. So bring something to the event that you're going to. If you can't, make that a compromise meal for you, and just be mindful of the portions that you're eating. And outside of that, make sure that you're continuing to maintain those healthier behaviors and being mindful of what you're eating, because you have 20% to play around with. So you want to use your 20%, especially during the holidays, because it's a time where we have to use that time. You're spending time with other people, and peer pressure is very intense and usually becomes the reason why we eat a lot of foods that we're not supposed to eat.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We have another question about budgeting. So our attendee asks, healthy food can be expensive. Do you budget, and how do you plan to most effectively use your budget when you're at the store?
Thank you for that question. Budgeting is something that has evolved for us over the year. For me, over the years, at first, when I didn't have enough money to budget for food, I would rely on just healthier options like canned food. So I would look for canned food. I still to this day do sometimes cook with canned foods. Now I use organic canned foods that tend to be on sale at the supermarket. So when I have my budget, I think about what can I maximize in my budget. So I think about the foods that I want to eat, the foods that I already have at home. I'm constantly going through my pantry and seeing what I have that I can reuse. I look for things that are on sale, and I buy those things in bulk. So if I see the quinoa is on sale, I might buy some of that in bulk. And the other thing is, eat healthy based on what your budget is. not everyone can afford to buy every single item organic or buy every single, grain and all these other things. Like if that's not where your budget is, that's fine. But you can eat healthier than you're doing right now. And if you have a budget where you can eat certain foods that are, let's say for example, you see that kale is on sale and you might want to buy some of that. And that week you might just want to focus on eating things on sale. And that's how I really use what's in season. Because like I mentioned before, foods that are in season tend to be a lot more affordable than the other foods. So I focus a lot on eating things that are in season when my budget is tight. I focus on foods that on ingredients that I could cook multiple things with. I don't get bored of summer foods easily. I know some people do. So I try to, if I'm buying chickpeas for that week, I'm gonna drip them on my salad. I'm gonna have them as a snack. I may even have them the following week. So, but if you're someone that likes to have different things throughout the week, I highly recommend looking at what's in sale, what's in season, and then using and freezing some of these things. I also freeze a lot of fruits and vegetables. And then I reuse them later on. You can, if you're freezing your own fruits and vegetables when they're in season, they are at peak, so they are safe to eat, and you can use them later. So I recommend a lot of freezing for people that are in a budget. And for when it comes to protein, you can try getting a lot more of your proteins from fruits and from plants instead of using animal products, because when you use animal protein, that tends to cost more. So you want to think about what kind of plants have the protein that you need and get it from there as well. Also, I would recommend if you have a farmer's market near you or open during this time, some people do, go to the farmer's market and get stuff from there. If you go towards the end when they're kind of about to close, they get they compromise a lot about their prices. So they will give you a discount on a lot of the stuff that they were selling that was more expensive earlier in the day, because they're trying to get rid of that stuff and they want to make sure that it's not going back with them. So maximize some of those options as well.
Excellent. Yenory, thank you for answering that question and for an excellent presentation. Unfortunately, that is all that we have time for. However, additional questions can be emailed to ratalum@rat.edu or tweeted at ratalum with the hashtag #MeRATWebinar. And we will direct your questions to the panel. Note that all participants will receive an email for our next few days with a link to today's webinar recording. Yenory, thank you again for being our panelist today, and thank you to our listeners for participating in today's webinar. Please consider joining us in the new year on January 11th for an introduction to Feng Shui, your home, with 2010 alumnus Nicholas Shenoy, a mortgage broker in Denver, Colorado. In a separate time, Nicholas is a Feng Shui expert and consultant. Nicholas graduated from RIT with a master's degree in communication and media technology. He is one of the leaders of RIT's Alumni chapter in Colorado and is an active member of the community. If getting your house in order is one of your New Year's resolutions in 2018, this just might be for you. Thanks again for joining us. Please exit the webinar by simply closing your WebEx window, and please do let us know what you have thought of today's webinar by taking the very brief survey, which will pop up when you exit. Have a great day.